Hello class, today I'm going to be teaching you about navigation. So navigation is a very important thing when sailing and for boating in general. Not even only sailing, because when you are even just driving a motorboat, it's important to know the different hazards and the meaning of the different buoys when you are boating around. So our goal for this lesson is going to be that we know the different hazards that we can run into while boating, and we know the meaning of the different buoys that we are going to come across. So, to start off, we have hazards. There are different geographical and navigational hazards that you can run into. So, what would you guys think is a hazard if you were boating?
A rock.
A rock, yes. So, hazards. So, we got rocks.
Other boats.
Other boats, that is a hazard, but just for right now, we're going to be talking more about, stationary hazards that will be marked. So,
People,
well, that is moving as well. So, can you think of anything else? Icebergs. Very similar to rocks.
land.
Land. Actually, that is very good. Land is an important thing not to run into. Anything else?
Shallow areas.
Shallow areas. Very good. Like sandbars. And there's one more that I'm looking for, and it's a bit weather related. So it's not always going to be there, but it is a hazard that is important for you to know for your Whitesail 3. So, can you think of what it is? It is fog. So fog is important to be aware of because fog can potentially be quite dangerous if you go out in that. So, fog. So basically, for all of these, except for, even a bit for fog, there are ways to avoid this. So generally, later in the lesson, I will explain how the buoys help avoid these things. And so for right now, I'm just going to talk a bit about different buoys that you can come across. It's called the lateral buoy system, is what the system's called. And I have a handout here for you guys explaining the 4 different buoys that we're going to be talking about today. So, buoys, they can come in many shapes. So, there can be a shape kind of like a spar, so straight, like this. It can be more of a kind of circular or smaller buoy, or it can be a larger, a big one with a light on top that you'd see maybe in a busier spot, or maybe in the middle, where you're less likely to be around people and stuff. There'll be these more big permanent ones. So to start off, we have our starboard and port hand buoys. So these buoys, usually when you come into a channel or something, when you are going to be going into a port or a yacht club or something, a harbor, they will mark a passageway there. So this helps you avoid land, because usually these things, they'll mark a safe passageway for you to get there, and it's important that you stay on the right side of them. Usually it's pretty evident, not to run into land, but just in case you aren't able to figure that out, you have those buoys to do that. So the starboard hand buoy is the red one, as you can see on your sheet. It is red. Since it's the starboard hand buoy, you want to keep it on your starboard side, right? So that's your right side. And then there's the port hand buoy, which is green, and you want to keep it on your port side. So they're obviously different colors, but in case you aren't able to see the different colors, there is also a difference in shape. So the starboard hand buoys, the red ones, they will have a pointed top. So you can see that. And then the port hand buoys, they will be flat on the top. So the starboard hand buoy, it would basically it would look like this. If it was like a spar like that, it'd be pointed at the top, kind of like that. If it was the starboard hand buoy, it would be like that. And if it was the port hand buoy, it'd be flat, like that. Basically what it means. If it was a big one like this, though, they would have lights, right? And it wouldn't be pointed or flat. Instead, there would be a flashing light in the color of the buoy, and that way it's also visible, like if it's dark or if it's like foggy or something like that. Okay. So then our third buoy, we have the fairway buoy. So this sometimes is referred to as the mid-channel buoy as well, but the proper term is the fairway buoy. And so basically it is white and red, as you can see on your handouts, and it has their vertical line. It's a vertical line right down the middle that separates the two colors. And so this buoy, it basically marks where the channel is safe. So it's safe water, it's basically usually in the middle of the channel sometimes, but it marks where that safe water is, and it's a good place to be overall. And then our fourth and final buoy is the isolated danger buoy. So this is one that you definitely want to avoid. It's black and it will have a red stripe that's horizontal in the middle of it. This buoy, it basically marks isolated danger. And note that it's isolated danger, right? So it's usually stuff that you wouldn't necessarily see. Like if you're heading towards a big island, they're not going to have isolated danger buoys necessarily there, because you can obviously see that there's an island there, you don't want to run into it. It's more stuff like sandbars, which you can't necessarily see, or maybe a rock that's beneath the water that you aren't able to see necessarily. And they will most often have a white light that flashes, and usually it's like 2 quick flashes every 5 seconds. So that's a pretty, it's like a way of identifying it, even if you're like in the dark or far away, those isolated danger buoys. So, to review all of this, I am going to ask you some questions, or do you have any questions about these buoys overall? Yes.
What is the point in a flashing green light or red light if you're colorblind? Like if you can't tell the difference of the two buoys, like the green or red, then what does a flashing light of that color make any difference?
Well, I guess if you're colorblind, you wouldn't necessarily see the color, but there is a pattern to the colors, and it's like a Morse code kind of pattern. And I think for the starboard hand buoy, it flashes an A or something like that, and there's a different letter for the port hand buoy. But yeah,
cool.
So basically,
so even colorblind people would be able to tell the difference.
yes. Well, if they knew what the different flashes meant, which hopefully, if they're an experienced sailor, they would know that, right?
Okay. What if you're blind?
If you're blind, well, that's a whole different situation altogether. Like, hopefully, you're not sailing by yourself if you're blind, and if you do, you better know the area